Hello and welcome to our collective worship today. The Lord be with you and also with you. It's very nearly the end of term. Not very long until Easter now. And there's certainly lots of things going on here in church in the next couple of weeks. All sorts of services which help us to get ready for and then to celebrate the mystery of Easter. Where I'm stood just at this point here, if you look around me, you can see quite a few, oh, it's another one there, I just spotted that one, quite a few different crosses. That cross there is the cross which we carry in procession before us. There's a cross on the altar there, and on the front, there's another cross there. There's a cross, we can see Jesus with the cross there in the stained glass window, these beautiful coloured windows. And there's another one just here, which is quite an interesting one, because that one, you wouldn't guess it, but it hasn't always looked like that. The two pieces of wood are made from the wood from our Christmas tree. So the Christmas tree, which looked so beautiful and lovely a few months ago as we were preparing for Christmas, has been stripped of all its branches and turned into a really rough wooden cross. At the start of each service, through this time when we're getting ready to celebrate the mystery of Easter, we always go and place different objects at the foot of the cross. And they're all things which help us to remember what happened to Jesus on the way to the cross. The story of the crucifixion is a really horrible story. And it makes us very sad when we think how somebody who's so good and so wonderful as Jesus could be treated so horribly and so badly by other people. People who were so convinced that the thing that they had to do was to put him to death, to fix him so that he couldn't get away. Of course, the story of Jesus dying on the cross is not the whole story, is it? We know the story of how Jesus died on the cross, of how he was then buried in the tomb, of how his friends all ran away. But then some of the women, on the third day, they came to the tomb, expecting to be able to prepare and to do some of the things which were necessary on burying a body. And so they came along with special ointments and spices, and as they came along early in the morning, they found that the stone that had been rolled across the front of the tomb had gone. And as they stepped inside, the body of Jesus was not there. And they didn't know what to do. They were frightened and scared, and they couldn't see it at that point. And one of the women sat there and she sobbed and she cried. And then, all of a sudden, somebody came along, and she thought it was the person who looked after the graveyard. And she said, "Oh, please tell me, where have you taken my master? Where have you taken Jesus? What have you done with the body?" And then the person she thought was the gardener just said, "Mary." And straight away she knew that she was in the presence of Jesus. Then after that, Jesus continued to appear to many of his friends, many of his followers and disciples. They knew that Jesus was risen. And that gave them great joy that they couldn't keep it to themselves. They had to go out and tell everybody. It seems strange, though, that in church we have so many crosses around which remind us of something really, really, really sad. Well, there's often two sides to things. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit of story about this church. Some of you will know this, some of you perhaps don't. But I'm just going to go for a little walk as we do this. Because when we come into Great Yarmouth Minster, we look up and we see this amazing, beautiful building stretching out there. You can see all the beautiful roof, and a lot of you came in here the other day and we enjoyed it, and it was lovely. It's a wonderful building to be in. Just love looking up at the roof. But something happened here in 1942, because at that time Britain was at war with Germany, and bombs were dropped on Yarmouth, and one night in 1942, June 1942, bombs fell on Great Yarmouth Minster and it burned. A huge fire. There was a steeple on top of the church, and it collapsed. The fire was so hot it melted the bells, and there was not a single bit of wood left on the roof by the time the fire had gone out, and you could see it from miles around. The place looked just a ruin. And then eventually, 1961, finally, they rebuilt Great Yarmouth Minster, and it is like we see it today. But Great Yarmouth Minster wasn't the only place which got bombed during the Second World War, because in a place called Coventry, a very similar thing happened to the old cathedral right in the centre of Coventry. Bombs fell and it burned, and everyone in Coventry, just the same as they would have been in Great Yarmouth, were devastated and really, really sad. When the fire had gone out at Coventry, some of the important people from the church and other people from the town and the mayor and the bishop and so on, they came and they walked through, and they noticed that as the roof had fallen in and collapsed and burned, there was two huge beams. One landed lying on the altar, a bit like the table up there at Coventry, lying on the altar, and the other fell across it, making the sign of the cross. This made people think, although they were really angry at the people who dropped the bombs, and they were really angry about the war, but actually it made them realise that forgiveness is something which Jesus talks about quite a lot as well. And another thing which they did is they found in the ruin of Coventry Cathedral some ancient medieval nails. These are some I just picked up. And they're not medieval, by the way. These ancient nails that they found. And what they did is they went and took some of the nails and then bound them together, making the sign of the cross. That has become a very, very powerful symbol for the people of Coventry. And the sign of the Cross of Nails is important, and some people even wear it around their neck. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Archbishop Justin, wears a cross of nails around his neck, and it's to remind him of the cross of Jesus, but it's to remind him that even when there's times when horrible, terrible things happen and it looks like it's the end, that Christian faith reminds Christians that although it might look bleak, although it might look desperate, there is always new life, and there is hope, and there is resurrection. So that's why we have a lot of crosses around. In church, you might have seen crosses in other places too. Because the cross speaks to Christians. And yes, it reminds us of the sadness, but it reminds us also that from that sadness comes hope and joy and forgiveness. A couple of questions to think about today. Oh yes, the first one, I wonder where you may have seen a cross. I wonder where you may have seen a cross. And my second question, I wonder if you have seen other things which give you hope. I wonder if you have seen other things which give you hope. Time to think, time to pray. So let's be quiet and still and let us pray. Dear God, when we see the cross, it can make us sad when it reminds us of what happened to Jesus. But because of the cross, Jesus rose from the dead, and that gives us hope and reminds us of that new life of resurrection. Help us, we pray, always to be able to see the hope for new life and new things. Amen. And let's say the prayer which Jesus taught us to say. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. So may God bless you. May God go with you. May God help you to see signs of new life and hope. And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit rest on you this day and always. Amen. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. In the name of Christ. Amen.